All right. I think there's a lot more to come in. So what I'll do is I'll just have to keep an eye on the attendees little section or participant section. But I think we kick off because we've only got 45 minutes. Welcome to our virtual lunch, our 2021 series. I'm pretty excited. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Paul Jantz, and on behalf of the professional partners, welcome to our lunch. As more people come in, I've got to admit them, sorry. Look, we've got a pretty exciting session today, and I think that's, it's been evident by the amount of new people that have actually registered. So we've got a lot of people registered for this, and I think
recording in progress.
And our two guests are going to provide you with some fantastic content as we work through our subject of systems and efficiencies. And I suppose my background being in coaching, and I've spoken to both Melissa and Stan about this, I've always been a very systems structured orientated process type of individual myself. So to be able to coach that for accounting firms has been really great. But we're going to delve a little bit deeper into that today, get two experts to share their knowledge with you. We're going to make it as interactive as possible as well. So there's going to be times where, if you've just joined us, if you can please mute your lines, that would be awesome. But throughout the next 45 minutes, we're going to have stuff that I'm going to work through with Stan, I'm going to work through with Melissa, but at the same time, I'm going to ask you guys for thoughts, opinions. Have you done something as well that you'd like to share with the group? Because I think that's the great thing about these virtual lunches. I might stop sharing that now. Most people have joined us. There we go. I might quickly go to speaker view so that we can have a look at that. So yes, it's going to be a fantastic next 45 minutes. My goal will be to stop this around 12:45. We may go a little bit longer because I know there's a fair bit to get through as well, apart from trying to admit people. Let me just say a quick hello to a few people. Wayne Locke, how are you, my friend? You good? Good to see you, mate. It's good. So let's get into this, because I know we've got a lot to get through. So let me introduce you to our two guest speakers. So we've got Melissa Voss. It's a bit like the Brady Bunch, really. Melissa Voss over here, and we've got Stan Corner over there. Let's get into this, because I think this is probably a really key one. And Melissa, I'm probably going to throw to you first. And I'm going to commence with the great and late Stephen Covey, who spoke about, and sort of one of his habits was beginning with the end in mind. And it's sort of one of those things that I still use quite a lot. So let's look at this from a point of view of, if we can get our systems and our processes streamlined, let's talk about, what do you believe and what are you seeing some of the key benefits or the results of doing that?
Yeah, look, it's a good place to start. There is lots of compliance tasks in an accounting practice. We all know that. They're quite repetitive. We do the same thing for every client, every quarter, every year. And we find that a lot of that time, that compliance time, it sucks most of our time. So we've got this huge opportunity to look at those types of tasks and automate as much of those as possible. By doing that, not only are you engaging more with your team, you're giving them more enjoyable work. The flow-on effects of that, and the spare time then to devote to those other things are the real results. So the result of being proactive with clients, spotting opportunities, engaging with clients in a meaningful way that makes it not only more rewarding and beneficial for your team, but also more beneficial for your clients. And they're getting what they actually want out of you as their accountant. I've just got somebody on the line talking. I'm just, can you mind meeting, please? Yeah. I'll leave you to deal with that, Paul. Just a reminder for those that have just joined us, would you mind muting your phone or your computer or whatever you're on, so that we aren't all privy to your conversations, until you want to speak, of course. So yeah, we're just talking about trying to reduce the compliance tasks, free up our time. It will lend itself to much more meaningful work. And what we've found in practice, and for the clients that we help, it's giving them more engagement in their job. which is the flow-on effect of having more time. So they're able to do things that they otherwise wouldn't have done. They're able to stretch the boundaries of that traditional accounting compliance role into the proactive stuff. And we always talk about it, doing more advisory, no one that has time for the advisory because of that other stuff. So implementing processes and systems gives you that time back to focus on that other stuff that actually is what matters in our day-to-day. And it's going to be more enjoyable for the team. So yeah, lots of flow-on effects. Obviously, profitability, you're doing things more efficiently, it's going to end up affecting the bottom line, but it's also engagement with the clients and the team. And I know most clients that we're talking to, retention and the war on talent at the moment is even more. It's harder to attract and find people now in this particular year of pandemic than we've ever had. So if you arm your team with systems and better bits of technology to do that boring stuff, they'll actually want to stay with you. So there's lots of flow-on effects.
Guy, I couldn't agree more. I think the one thing that I can remember going to a conference years and years and years ago, and the one thing that I've written down here and circled in particular was time. Now, I can remember going to a conference years ago. It could have been one of those leaders, one of the world leaders ones at the Tennis Centre in Melbourne, and they always spoke about, one of the things that's resonated with me is we've all got 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. No one's got anything more than that. You can't manufacture anything more than that. But some people use their time better than others. And those people that use their time better than others are more successful. So it's an interesting mindset to work through, because you're right. And if you can create that structured systems, processes, efficiencies type of mindset, it creates time for you to do. That time could be to spend more time, I don't know, I've got 3 boys, to spend more time with the kids. That could be spending more time with clients. It could be having more access to team members. There's so many knock-on effects, as you just mentioned there, Melissa, and I think it's a really, really good point to start with. Stan, I might throw to you for a sec, mate. Do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, look, fantastic conversation. Probably only 2 points. The first one is, while Melissa comes from an accounting background, I come from a business background. So the point I'd really make here is everyone that's on the line, you're an accounting firm, but you're also a business. So these process or driving processes that we talk about, they're business processes. Yes, they're aligned to accounting, but there's a really important message there. I think second of all, Paul, to your point, we talk about our time, but as employers, what we're really trying to get here is the multiplier effect. So back to Melissa's point at driving these processes, it's not just a personal process. This is about processes. If you can drive that through your team, then the multiplier of that productivity is very, very significant. That leads to growth, not just growth in business, but growth in your people and growth in your bottom line. And if I understand one thing about business, and we're all business people, a really important factor about business is the BRC, the bottom right-hand corner of our bank statement. Yeah. And for me, processes are critical to driving that to the right place, and probably, if I get to the point, the right colour.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Well said. Well summed up, mate. I might stick with you because it's an important one. Now, I'm going to come from 2 aspects here, because unfortunately, when we go into a firm or someone moves to a new firm and whatever it may be, we tend to carry a bit of history. And it's unfortunate, but there's also times where I want to sort of move to, there's been other firms that I know that also have gone out, started their own firm only this year or even last year, and they start with a blank canvas. So if you were to start with a blank canvas, and Stan, I'm going to stay with you for a second here, what systems and processes probably require the greatest attention? Is there a top 5 that you can share with everybody online? That, we've just commenced a brand new financial year. There's a lot of things we should be reviewing and leaving behind, and we're going to talk about some of that stuff as well as we continue today. But do you have a top 5, everyone, to start with a blank canvas?
Yeah, I probably don't have a top 5, but I certainly have some tips and tricks, because while my background is business, I've run mature businesses and more recently founded a startup. So I actually understand these variables, and it's kind of interesting because while I was still running my business, I was running a startup. A couple of challenges here: time. I wasn't particularly productive, but I think I'd like to start with the various phases of a business from startup. Right now, I love that comment. You've got to start with the end in mind. And I'm going to talk to that because I think that's really critical. So if we look at it from a startup, you're a startup, and then you're a scale up, right? So when you're starting, you're an idea, you might have a bit of revenue, but then you've got to scale up. You then can become mature, right? Now, Paul, to your question, where's the opportunity? In process, I actually think the greatest opportunities are in those mature businesses. Yep. Now, what happens after maturity is decline. Now, my key tip here is that if you're a startup, yes, you've got green fields. It's probably easier. If you mature, to be blunt, if you don't actually get into this process and start growing, you'll end up declining. Yep. And there's only one way to coast, and that's downhill backwards, and it's a very, very dangerous activity. So I think the number one tip, it goes back to that starting with the end in mind. So I call it, if I'm a startup, the very first thing I've got to do is determine my purpose.
Okay.
I call it my light on the hill, the shining light on the hill. And that shining light on the hill, my purpose, should guide every decision I make, including driving process activity. Yep. Because if I know where I want to be, it's then a journey of getting there. So, and then the next thing you've got to do once you understand what your purpose is two things. Is you then got to go through the process of deciding what your strategic intent is. Yep. So now I know I'm a bit off piece, but I'm going to come right back into this point. So following that, then you've got your strategies and your tactics. Your tactics are where your processes sit. So if you don't understand where you're going, for me and mine, there's some challenges in understanding what are the best processes to put in place. Yep. So I think if we're a startup, some of the challenges are, as a startup, often you don't have the money or the resources to be able to put all these things in place, right? So what we see a lot of startups do is they actually go through the process and get to maturity and then go, oh my God, the light on the hill, I can't even see it anymore because I'm too busy dealing with compliance, right? But what I wanted to be was an advisory firm. Now, I have to do the compliance because it's part of the gig, but really what I want to do is I want to work with my clients in this advisory. So I think to answer your question, the opportunity probably sits in maturity. My 3 top tips are these. The first one is you need to review what you're doing. You need to sit back, step out of the business a bit, and look for that light on the hill. Go back to your purpose. If you know what that is, that will probably guide you directly to the things that you need to address right now. So the first thing I do in a review of any business is review our processes. My number 1 tip is eliminate. So we eliminate those processes and things that we're doing that do not add any value to our client. They don't add any value to the stakeholders, so the team members, and they don't add any value to the business. But most importantly, they have no alignment to my purpose. So eliminate. That will give you some time to go about the next stage. Now, really importantly, a bit of a storyteller. I've experienced this in one of my businesses, and a mature business, and I was gobsmacked at the things I found my people doing. You know, we had one particular report that was being generated by 3 people in 3 different departments because they thought they had to, and not one single soul in my team ever referred to those reports. And this has been going on for years. So, and that was time consuming. So eliminate what's not adding value. The next step is to automate. this brings us to tech. So there's a lot of tech out there that can actually automate some of those things where it's just not required to have a human involved anymore. So my last step of this process, and I've applied this and I've guided many businesses through this process, we never get there. So the last step in my process is outsource. So look at some of the things you might be doing internally and outsource them. Now, most people start thinking that's offshore. It's not. It might be that you've got your admin person trying to manage your social media. It's just not a good fit. Yep. So therefore, it's not just about having your people doing the things that the business needs, but are they good at? So should you maybe outsource that to a specialist? So it's audit, so review, eliminate, automate, and then possibly consider some outsourcing.
Yeah, well said, well said. And a couple of key things.
Can I lodge those 4 tax returns?
Sorry, guys, if someone's online, if you don't mind muting it.
I think 3 of them were from the other day, weren't they?
I love going live.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jeff, that might be you. I might just mute you there. So back to me for a second. I've just lost train of thought. I was going to mention something, so that's what happens because those tax returns needed to be lodged. From an automate point of view, and this is a really good one. So just as an example, and I'm going to come back to a couple of things, and Melissa, I'm going to come back to you as well. And that, and I'll give a shout out to our friends at Fuse Energy, Practice Ignition. And I think from an automation point of view, let's talk engagement letters as an example, because engagement letters, we know, especially for firms that are outsourcing overseas, we're about to go through a series of different changes, adding information. A lot of engagement letters might have ended on 30 June and you've got to reignite them for the 1st July for the new financial year. Can be, depending on the size of your firm, very, very time consuming. That's where the automation side comes in. So whether you're using a Fuse Energy, whether you're using a Practice Ignition to do that and automate that for you and it flows through to zero and it's in your workflow, that's an example, I suppose, of exactly what Stan was just talking about then. So,
Paul, can I just mention something here? I am amazed, and we work in multiple sectors, right? Not just the accounting area. I am amazed at the volume and quality, so quantity and quality of the automation platforms and apps that are available to you guys in this industry. It is truly amazing. And in some part, I'm probably also a little gobsmacked that there's still so many practices not taking advantage of that opportunity. You guys are in a unique position. The amount of automation apps that are automation, etc., that is available is truly amazing. Go out and take a look.
Yeah, agree. And just to everyone again, if there's some background noise coming through, if you can mute your lines, I'm doing my best to try and do it as you're coming in, but if you can please mute your lines. The other thing I just wanted to share as well before I go to Melissa on a thought process of that, I've got a question for you, Melissa, is we've got our chat bar there. If you've got anything that you'd like to share, thank you, Anis. You've just put some stuff in there from client partners. If you want to put some comments in there, and please do so. This is about sharing and about collaboration, and that's what these sessions are all about. So please do so. Melissa, one of the things that Stan touched on, and you're quite welcome to share your thoughts as well, but when we're looking at doing a review, how important is it to make sure that you're engaging with the people that actually do the work, as in the team?
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's kind of the thing we would always suggest. And I know in our practice, sort of our approach is always ask the people on the ground. You know, the people doing the function are the ones more likely to identify if there's room for improvement. So, you know, my little saying is generally, if you could wave a magic wand and change one thing in your day that you're doing that you're not enjoying, what would that be? And if you ask a room of 20 people, you're going to get 20 different answers. So, you know, have a whiteboard up on the, you know, in the, you know, the factory, we call it the back office, where people can just scribble what they're not doing, what they're not enjoying about their day. And, you know, if they're frustrated by something, capture it at that minute and foster a business of asking for improvement opportunities. Don't just leave that to one person. I'm very much a fan of get the team to pave the way for that change, because if they do that and they spot the room for improvement, the uptake of those improvements and the maybe technology efficiencies and new bits of new systems and processes will be adopted so much better anyway. So I'm a big fan of that. I love some of the points Stan was raising around the I guess reflecting on what you want that end to be. And I would probably suggest the biggest thing within an accounting practice that if you get it right has so many flow-on impacts around process and automation would be your client data, your practice management data. There is, in every accounting firm, you need data about clients. Obviously, you need to invoice them. There's workflow processes that you can do to make that easier. And you've got compliance programs that help with tax and ledger and super funds. And all of that is just part and parcel of what we do. But if you get that right and you have good, clean, structured data and well thought out practice management systems, the flow-on effect of that is gold. That's where people like Stan's business with ATO Mate, with us, with FuseWorks, we can do so much with that data because we can rely on it. So a lot of times people go, I say you cannot automate a shambles. So if you start with good, core, structured data and think about how you want to use that data, and that also lends itself to not recording stuff for the sake of it. If you don't need stuff, why would you get your team to update it? Try to flow on, the flow on effect of all of that. So yeah, I would say a really robust practice management system is the hub. And as we know, and Stan alluded to this, there are so many apps that interact with that data or the document management system data that the flow on effect of is amazing. Yeah.
Well said. Well said. Now, I'm going to share a couple of things to all of you, and I think there's a lot of you on the line as well, which if you're looking for, again, there's going to be little golden nuggets all over, little tidbits all over the place from Melissa, from Stan. One of the key things that Melissa just mentioned, Stan, was a whiteboard session. Now, there's two things there that I'll share with you that we used to do back when I was a lot younger, 20 years ago. And we used to just sit down with the team and do I put it down here, a mind map of the job and the process. We'd say, take us through the process for a self-managed super fund. And we get the people to actually mind map it out. What is it? And then someone else will come on the whiteboard and do it. And we'll go, hang on a minute. So you guys are doing two different processes, two different ways. Now, these are things we don't know unless you actually do that and you get the team to mind map it, not the partner to mind map it. So we used to do that. And the amazing part is then you're getting the team, and I think Melissa mentioned it before, you've got to empower these guys, okay? Because that means a cultural difference as well. And that's where you get them to say, okay, well, so what's the solution, guys? What do you think? We've just identified a problem here. What's the solution? And they come up with the solution 9 times out of 10 to improve that process. And just another little one that we did with a number of firms back then as well was one of the firms took that to the next level. And they started what they called the think tank session. So exactly what Melissa said before is, if there's a problem, it happens at the time, go and write it down. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Then we take that into a weekly think tank session. And I got the partner at the time to buy, I think it was croissants and coffees for the team because they came in 15 minutes early, and it'd be a 15-minute session at 8:15 to 8:30 as an example. And you'd reward them with a coffee and croissant, and you've got this culture working. Righto, guys, the whiteboard, we've got 5 things on there. Our goal is to come up with a solution for those 5 things. Let's go. Again, it's proactive. It's allowing your team members to be empowered to have a voice. So just little things that I think you can use if you're not already doing it. I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, I really like that, and we have I guess an approach to that. Then it's around prioritizing how that might unfold in your practice, and it's really about the impact versus the effort to doing that. So you don't start, and this will probably come up later in the topic, but you don't start with all these new shiny bits of tech and go, oh, I want that one, that one, that one. Don't start there. Start with, which people do get lured into, start with what is the problems in our business that we're getting impacted with daily, weekly, our team are finding frustrating. Start with the process, and then it's about, okay, is there some technology to support that?
Yep, well said. before I go to my next question, can I just request everybody to, I know I've already asked you to mute, can I request everyone to put something in the chat bar, what you're using right now in terms of, and Melissa mentioned it, data management. So what are you using in terms of a data management system? Maybe it's a CRM system. Maybe people don't know the difference between the two. What are you actually using is something that you can share with us that's positive so that everybody else can see that as well to say, okay, I didn't, or I wasn't aware of that. Should I go and check that out? Should I go and look at that? So just if you can share it, that's to everybody. I'm okay with that. Stan, I'm going to go back to you for a second because we spoke about some key things there. One of the critical factors, and I know this happened with one of my podcast chats earlier this year with Mike from Seamless, we spoke about the importance of governance and the importance of, if you've got a system and process in place, how do you govern it? How do you measure it? How do you manage it? And if anything, get out your little screwdriver and tweak it if it needs tweaking. Not all the time it needs to be unscrewing and being replacing, it just needs to be tweaked. What are your thoughts on that? You're on mute, mate. You're too efficient.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. So thanks. Sorry about the mute thing. My favourite position in COVID. So I think you make a really valid point. I'll go back to something Melissa said, is that you don't have to find the automation to create a process. So processes can be made up of a manual process. The key to a process for me is that it's structured, it's documented, because if it's not documented, it's open very much to interpretation, and it's managed and measured. So to Melissa's point, yes, get the team involved. They're going to know what the pain points are. They're going to understand what the real task is. I applied this in one of my businesses, and to be really blunt, I wasn't involved operationally, so I was clueless, but I did understand what the light on the hill was telling me. So I think my top tip in this area is that we've all heard this. What is measured is managed. If you don't measure it, it's not managed. And we have this saying in our business that every process suffers what we call the unofficial drift. So the unofficial drift is, this is the process. We know that this delivers a particular outcome. And what we know is that we're human, so we'll all drift a little. So if we're all dead on this process right now, when we drift by 1%, it makes no difference to the outcome. 2%, probably not much. 3%, a tad, but we can't see it. But we get to 5%, and all of a sudden, we're in a world of pain. So we term that as the unofficial drift. And the only way to manage that is have someone measuring the performance to the process. So it might seem like it's a lot of work, but what this actually delivers is two things. One is it gives you the opportunity for a manual process to say to your team, we need to follow the process, right? We need to be spot on. Please don't change it just because you feel like it. So if the team is performing the process and it's delivering the outcome, then you probably don't need to tweak it a whole lot. But if the team is performing the process and it's not delivering the outcome, there's the reason to tweak. So don't spend time working on something that doesn't exist. Now, really importantly, this is why the unofficial drift is so critical to recognize, that if the team is not working to the process and you're not getting the outcome, don't tweak, because what you find yourself in is a spiraling event of change, and in the end, everyone will go, nah, we're done. This process just sucks. So it's about design the process with your team, then measure it. Doesn't have to be you, but measure it for performance. Is it delivering the outcome? And are we working to that? So, and audit. Again, I come back to audit. Everyone knows what this is. Just take a little bit of time and check that the process is being followed. And then only tweak where required. And to be really fair, it's the same when you put technology in. Yeah, because the tech will deliver a particular set of outcomes if you allow it. Yeah.
Well said.
I hope that makes some sense.
No, it's good. I'm going to go to Melissa. If you've got anything to add there, Melissa, but we're also going to touch on tech very soon because I think it's an area that could be. I know it's confusing. So we'll be going to come to that very soon and get some ideas. Thank you, everyone who's putting some great comments in our chat bar about document management, CRM, some great stuff in there. So, and this is where, again, we can share our goods and bads, let's call it, our positives and negatives, and make sure that we're aware of stuff. Because I know even I just put something in there about FYI docs. And from what I know, it's very good. But I also know that a firm that went to transition to it, they were a Google-based firm, only worked with Microsoft, and therefore that was a massive issue for them. So now we've had to migrate to Microsoft, which is not easy. From Google to Microsoft, it's easy to go from Microsoft to Google, not easy to go from Google to Microsoft. So just be aware of little things like that, and that's the value of this. So hopefully it continues to provide you guys with some good value. Melissa, have you got anything you'd like to add to that before we go to, again, who's probably the best person to do this in terms of implement change?
Yeah, I agree with Stan on his points. Probably what we've seen a lot more in probably in the last year or two is having a project champion or there's all these different names, system champion, digital transformation specialist. People have made a role within their business that is their responsibility to, I guess, be the driving force of change and of review of change. They don't have to be the one that makes the decisions or reviews everything, but there's actually a role for ensuring it happens. So that's becoming a lot more common in practice. It doesn't have to be a full day, doesn't have to be a full week. It could be an hour out of somebody's day in a small practice, but their primary role is around that technology process, looking at other opportunities and reviewing things. And one thing I like that probably found a few years ago, a lady called Nadia Youssef, and I was just trying to find her, Google her. There was a TED talk on treat your technology like a colleague. And what we've taken away from that, and it's all around, you review your team members, review your technology like you're giving them performance review. So every 6 months, you've got, a tech stack of 20 things. Are you using it Are you using it? Are you using it to its maximum potential? If you're paying for things you're not using, it's a waste of money. You wouldn't pay a team member sitting there having coffee all day. So use the same logic like the performance review with technology. I think it's a fun way of looking at it. It gets it top of mind, and it gets it people not wasting money on things that they're not using. So I like that one. But yeah, just make it a role in the business and have somebody in charge of it.
Yeah, well said, well said. Look, I don't mind opening up now just to get some bit of collaboration. I know some great chat going on there, which is awesome. Has anyone actually, if anyone like to unmute themselves and share with us, has anyone gone down the road of that governance audit process that Stan spoke about, or even to share with anybody that has gone down the road of engaging with the team to improve systems and processes, and even share some of the results that you've got? Anyone there that would love to? I don't know if you can put your hand up in this or not. I always get confused with the different things. I'm going to take silence as no very soon.
Yeah. Hey, can I just add one thing?
Yeah.
Melissa's spot on. I'd just like to add the one point that what Melissa's talking about, what we're talking about with who's going to do, actually relates to culture. Yep. So for me, I believe it's absolutely critical that this is part of the business culture. It's not just something that you've decided to do. And my key point to that is, I've seen some businesses where this isn't actually the fact, but culture starts from the top. Culture only flows down. Culture does not flow up through a business. So if this is what you decide to do to the point of getting the team engaged, what that culture means is make sure you're actually engaging and listening and living and breathing this change. Because if you don't, you're actually saying one thing and doing another, your team will not buy in, and I can guarantee you won't get the outcome.
Yeah, 100%. And again, if I can share a few little from experience, from the grey hair here, and that is that it's got to be consistent. So it's not just worth bringing in a Melissa or a Paul or a Stan just as a one-off. And like anything, if it's a one-off, that's all people will see it as opposed to having that consistent process and system that you put in place and measure. And I think that's a really important point, because when I've done that in the past, team members will soon identify you bring in an external person to help you, which is fine. I'm all for that. I'm all about bringing external help in. But then if you don't implement the old failure to implement, we can bring that back into play from 30 years ago, that will bite you on the ass in terms of culture. And all team members will end up saying is, oh yeah, I've heard this before. Oh yeah, I know we're going to discuss it, but no one will do anything about it. And so if you want change to take place, you need to own it. Not sure if anyone wants to add anything to that. We'll keep going. We're talking about tech. This is always interesting because I don't know. I was on. I think it was probably our Chewing the Accounting Fat show probably 4 weeks ago, and I had a guest on there was telling me that there's more than 800 zero add-on apps, which is bloody ridiculous. And we all know that that's probably only going to grow. So to the firm that's sitting here thinking about, okay, I'm about to start up an accounting firm. I'm based in Melbourne. Hopefully we don't go into lockdown today, but it's possible we could. What do I start with? You know, again, there's 800 add-ons. How do you navigate through the noise? Melissa, I might start with you on this one. How do we navigate through the noise? And what's considered essential? How do we work through that?
And I guess to my point earlier, don't start with that 800 because that's overwhelming. Start with the conversation with the team around the issues and the frustrations in their day. It's obviously good to have an understanding of what is available in the market and listen and be involved with things like this and other tech chats and other events, etc. But start with the problem. Don't just go to those 800 and go, oh, which one should I get and let's try, because your team will clearly get tech fatigue. You know, and tech fatigue is a thing. If you know, and there are some really passionate directors out there and leaders that go, oh, we're going to try this, we're going to start this. Oh no, we're not doing that anymore. Oh, we're changing to this. Don't do that. Try to have a bit more structure, because otherwise the next time someone comes into the office and goes, oh, we're doing this, you'll get the whole team go, oh, do we have to? So start with the problem. I think, like I said, start with a really clear practice management, document management system. Prioritize around that then, what are the incidental things that could improve our process? So you've got some good core technology. What other bits of technology will improve our day-to-day processes? So what are we doing the same way every time in our practice? And look, I'm a chartered accountant. We developed our business FuseWorks out of frustration in our practice because
Yes.
we were sick of doing manual collations. So we developed FuseWorks to do that because it wasn't out there. So we started with the process, we were frustrated, we did something about it. So that's what I would suggest. Don't just go to the 800. Start internally, start with the rhythm. So leadership has to, there has to be a culture of exploring better ways of working, asking the question, looking for smarter ways. You know, no matter how you carve that up, it can't rest with the leadership team though. You have to have the team members on the grounds, the one looking at the change, suggesting the change, trialing the change. Otherwise, there's bottlenecks and nothing ever happens. So I think you spread that across the team. There's functions in the admin team that the admin team should control. There's function in the accounting team. Have them do that. So I would suggest spread that out and start with the problem before looking at the solution. And with any bit of technology, there's technology, people, and process. All three come together, and you've got to manage all three really well. Otherwise, you're not going to get success.
Yeah, well said, well said. And I think the ability to even think, I couldn't work with that by whiteboard. You guys can't see it, it's right there. But the ability to have something up there, even call it your frustration board. We all go through day-to-day frustrations, minute-to-minute frustrations. So if the team has got the ability to write it, and then it's visual, we know that 90% of us are visual people. So therefore it's visual, and people can see that. Even the bosses walking around, the partners walking around, and go, interesting. Okay, yeah. So I've got a good question here. So this is the conundrum, I suppose. I was looking for the right word. The conundrum of running a multi-partner firm, and perhaps just actually put this down. So we have 4 partners. They all have their own ways of doing things, but still want the teams to follow standard procedures. How do we deal with this situation? This is probably why sole practitioners stay sole practitioners.
Look,
Mike's
I
letting
see
you.
this. I see this all the time. The more partners, the more teams. 10 teams, 10 partners, 10 ways of working. There needs to be, and there should be, a unified way of doing things across that leadership team, because the result, the flow on effects and the profitability and all of the systems and processes that flow from that will be so much better. So I'm a big fan for trying to get a unified approach to doing that. It has to start with that directorship, because I often hear, people in different teams go, oh no, my director wouldn't do that. I don't know, we send stuff out in paper, and someone, I don't know, we use something else. It's like, okay, no, you've got to rally the leadership team to try to get on the same page. Ultimately, it's the bottom line of their practice. So do that, and then the teams will follow. It just makes complete sense. And the other thing is, if you use some technology to support the processes in those teams, there's kind of not a choice. So I'm just sort of saying my own example here, but if we were to put in, and we do all the time, FuseWorks into a practice with 10 different teams and 10 directors, it is turned from 10 ways of working to one consistent output for every client that ever gets anything from that office. That's the outcome, that's the ultimate. And I mean, that's just one example. But you think about that for everything you do, you're getting a really well-oiled machine.
Yep, agree. And look, there's a really good important point there that Linda just made as well. So Linda Steffens, thank you. If you're going to create your whiteboard and you put one column frustrated by, I've always been a problem solution person. So everyone can come to you with a problem.
Yeah.
Empower the team to think about what's the possible solution. And that's what that is. So what might help is ... So fantastic suggestion there. And I think that, the other thing to that issue with the 4 partners is, I think Melissa hit the nail on the head. Unless you're doing extremely well and you've got a shitload of profitability, pardon the language, and you don't want more profitability, you can always ask. One of the things that I used to use as a technique was the what if scenario. That's what I used to call it. What if we tried this? What if we got more bottom line results by streamlining our processes? Would that be okay to test? So asking a really good question, which you can't get usually, it's not a yes or no. Most people go, well, what if we tried it? Are you against trying it? So there's a technique that could help, but it is getting into the psychology of the individuals to actually get that change to happen. Stan, have you got anything you'd like to add to that, mate?
Yeah, I think yes. So I think this whole consistency is one of the driving questions. And in fact, when we talk in our business to practices with ATO Mate, which is all around document communication, one of the things we always ask, why did you seek us out? And I'd say 70% of the time, the response we get is it's about time. But the second most reoccurring comment is consistency. So what drives that? I think what's driving that is your industry, like many, have got some real issues with margin squeeze. Yep. So I don't think any industry is immune from this. But if I describe that in what's happening, and I take this then back to where should you start, is that your clients want you to do work that they don't want to pay you for. It's rudimentary and basic. So they demand that you do it. It's often time consuming, but they do not want to pay you. So if you build someone for sending them a letter and it costs $100, they would be blue murder. Yep. So damage the client relationship. So I think the margin squeeze will drive this discussion within that directorship. Yep. Where do you start looking? Really simple. Melissa's hit the nail on the head. Look for things that are highly repetitive. Yep. They're repeated very regularly, so all the time. And your team is going to know. And what I mean by that is if you keep asking your team to do boring, monotonous, mind-numbingly, drive me mad, drive me to drink, then they're going to leave you. Now, they may not resign and go somewhere else, but they've left you. So they're no longer part of the team. And that then comes back to culture. And for me, and I'm probably getting a bit too, big picture out there, one of the things I know in all of my businesses is where I have a happy team, it's because I've got culture. And you know what that results in? A much healthier BRC. It just happens. It's like magic. So I think, if you're not considering automation process, you should be, because if nothing else, as the recruitment pool gets tighter, what is going to happen is you're also going to recruit, dare I say, I've got my grey hair coming out, Gen Yers. They will not do that basic work that you want them to do that we all did when we joined the business. They will revolt. They might do it, but it's under sufferance, right? And that doesn't lead to, one of my visions, which is teamwork makes the dreams work.
Well said, well said. And I think, a couple of things in there that I'll also share, because we've just gone up to 12:47, so just conscious of time. If there's any questions you'd like to pop into the chat bar, please do so. Just a couple of things before we wrap up, and that is also, as you're doing this, one of the things that I know I've started the conversation on with a number of firms as well is when you're identifying systems and processes and breaking this down and having a look at that, also think about, as we look forward, so we probably don't do this enough. Unfortunately, we're an industry that needs to look back. But in your business, you've got the ability to look forward. And when you're doing that, think about if it's a repetitive, robotic type of process, it will be taken out by artificial intelligence. Okay, that is only a matter of time. Okay, where AI is coming to so many different areas now. And it's probably coming softer than we think. Even things like looking at our mobile phones, we don't even have to open them anymore. They just open by looking at our face. There's a lot of things in there that will be taken out. So think about that and identify that, because that gives you the ability also to, again, ask the team. There's a lot of great things there that you can then forecast and plan for if you're aware of it.
And if you don't, your competition may very well do so.
Spot on. Spot on. We're going to, again, I know we've gone over time a little bit, but we might just go an extra 5 minutes. If anyone's got any questions, there's some great chat in the chat bar. I'm just trying to make sure. You're quite welcome to also unmute and ask Melissa or Stan a question. Please do so. I love the interaction. We'll wait. While I'm going to that, that's all right. Silence is good. That means we're getting a lot, which is what this is all about. These little sessions, whether it's our virtual lunches or whether it's our Chewing the Accounting Fat show, it's about, or our podcast series, it's about educating. And, that's one of the great things that when we first launched the Professional Partners in February 2019, we invited 30 firms into our office here and we said, what would you like this to be? And it was all about educating our firms and educating their clients. So it's one of those things that we continue to do. Stan, Melissa, before we wrap up, a parting comment. What do you think? We'll let the ladies go first. Melissa?
So closing comment.
Closing comment.
Don't delay things. So we often get a client that engages with us and they say, oh, I wish I did that sooner. So that's not just for us, it's for anything. Just give it 5 minutes now, any process improvement in your business, the reward will be huge. So that's what I suggest. Just don't put it off for another day. We always do, we're always busy. Use your time wisely and just give yourself some time to think about some of those things that could reap huge rewards in this coming financial year.
Well said. Stan? You're on mute, mate.
Yes, so I agree. In fact, what we find when firms come to us in a lot of cases, they go, we love what you're doing. That's going to give us so much benefit, but I don't have time. I don't have time to do it. So to Melissa's point, there's never a better time than now. You don't have to do it all at once. So my analogy is go to the fruit bowl, pick up the apple and take a bite and start chewing. Don't, as we've already commented, don't try and get the whole apple in your mouth, but take a bite and start chewing, because the rewards will come sooner than you think. And that first bite will lead to the second and third and fourth, that then leads to a highly productive team that's got great vision, values, and culture that then delivers fantastic things to your clients, and that's what we're all here for, that in return, you've heard me say it before, it's one of my favourite sayings, will give you a very strong BRC.
Can you share what BRC is, just for some firms that may have joined us late?
Yeah, so the bottom right-hand corner of our bank statement.
Which is?
Always got to be black.
Very important, very important. Look, brilliant. Look, couldn't agree more with all of the thoughts, the comments. I love it. You know, this is what these are all about. So I certainly want to just extend a very big thank you. Melissa Voss, thank you very much. Thanks for joining us today. Stan Corner, thank you again. I think, you know, I've spoken to both of you on our podcast, and we continue to, some of the experiences that both of you have had have been enormous, and that's the ability to share that with all of you online today. So thank you for joining us. We've gone a little bit over time, which I apologise for. Again, reach out to Melissa, reach out to Stan, reach out to me if you've got any thoughts or comments. But otherwise, thanks for joining us, our virtual lunch. Look out for the next one. Look out for our next Chewing the Accounting Fat stuff. We've got a lot of stuff going on. So please be aware of all of that. But have a wonderful, if you're in Sydney, please stay safe. You're in Melbourne, please stay safe. You're in Brisbane, I think there's a little bit more stuff going on there. But to all of you, yeah, please stay safe and well, and look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Paul. Great job, mate.
Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you, everybody.